Well, joining us now is energy expert and chief executive officer of Mainstream Energy Solutions, engineer Lamu Audu. Good to see you, and thanks for your time. We saw you in that report by Shaw Momo. You know, the worrying issue has to do with electricity, and we really can't let that, slide until we get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely.
Now, I think the best place to start is you've been in the sector, you're an expert. Objectively, what's the racket about, this frequent breakdown of the national grid?
Thank you very much, Suleiman. You see, this is not a rocket science thing. We've been operating the grid for quite some time now, and it is very unfortunate that in this moment of our time in Nigeria, we're still talking about grid disturbances. We should be talking about modernizing the grid, actually, installing SCADAs and smart grid, assets, not trying to figure out what has gone wrong, why a simple CT, current transformer, will knock out a whole grid in a country. So the challenges actually are so many. Let me take it from different perspectives, because grid collapse could happen from different reasons. You can look at it from the technical point of view, commercial, and in fact political. Technically, you must have heard people talking about aged equipments, lack of maintenance, lack of proper inventory management, lack of modernization and all that. It is rather sad that you still have equipment that are 40, 50 years in our system today. Even if they are functioning, you know very well that they are not efficient any longer. And you cannot adapt them to the expected modernization that a modern grid should have. Now, that's not just all. There's this serious issue of lack of adequate maintenance management program on most of the equipment, to the extent that you see some of these things failing without notice. Ideally, all these assets should be well protected. No transformer should fail, no current transformer or any other or breaker should actually fail without giving you notice or without being protected, because these are huge assets. Assets that had a huge investment.
Absolutely.
Yes. So they should be well protected. So this is, again, one of the common reasons why these things are happening every day, because there is no proactiveness.
Okay, so let me come in here, if you would allow me. The Power Minister, Adebayo Adelabu, said, look, as much as, grid failures to be expected, or they've been happening, frequently, that there is a need to actually prioritize efficiency that is essential in preventing these frequent breakdowns.
Yes, let me give you example now. The electricity value chain are three, basically: generation, transmission, and distribution. We all know that the generation and the distribution value chain have been privatized. And the essence of the government privatizing those value chains is to inject the efficiency that is noted with the private sector and to also attract investment. Now, TCN, or Transmission Company of Nigeria, is in between these two and is still publicly managed and owned and managed. So there's a huge gap between how these value chains are, because they're supposed to be a handshake.
Yeah.
Right.
There has to be a synergy. Because I will, as a private investor, I'm a businessman.
After all, they were all together once upon a time.
Exactly. So if you don't have a transmission management that aligns with weigh the generation which is private, the distribution which is also private, there will be a serious gap between the two. So that's why I was mentioning.
That handshake, is it missing right now?
Yes, it's missing because I mentioned about time earlier. When there are no consequences to your actions or inactions, then, because for me, as an investor, I at least have my shareholders at my neck. There's a huge investment which I'm aware of.
Yeah.
It is my duty to ensure I add value to my shareholders and also to the system. But when there are no consequences, and I mean, to be fair to the TCN management, there are a lot of what I would say political interference in the way they do their management decisions or carry out their management decisions. That is impacting seriously on how they apply their funds, the limited funds. You can never have enough funds anyway.
Okay, so now, because we don't have the luxury of time, let's start talking about solutions, because we know one of the reasons why the transmission is still very much in the hands of government is issue of national security. But what are the key things that the government should do? Because 40, 50 years old equipment, some of them bequeathed to us by our colonial masters, doesn't really, speak well of what we really want to do in that sector. What should we start doing?
Yes, Suleiman, the issue of being a critical national asset does not arise here because I operate hydro power plants in Nigeria, which remain government assets. They are critical national assets. They are concession to us. So the assets still remain government. We have a regulator that monitors what we do. In fact, not just the regulator, we have the Bureau for Public Enterprise and all those agencies that are supposed to monitor our activities. Because the asset does not belong to us, and it's a critical national asset anyway. So what needs to be done here is to ensure that you bring competent private operators to manage these assets. People that will bring some commercial, decision in their day-to-day activities.
And the technical know-how?
Yes, what I mean commercial is that you will attract investment, and definitely once there's an investment, your behavior will change. Because the investors will not allow you to mess up their investment anyway. So it can remain national assets, but managed appropriately. That is what is done elsewhere in other climes without any issue. So this has to be done to inject the efficiency that is noted with private sector.
And how significant, too, would be the input of this SCADA? I mean, you keep talking about SCADA. I've learned so much about SCADA from Sulaiya. How important is SCADA to the, in the scheme of things?
It is important because you have thousands of kilometers of network across the nation, which actually is being managed from a national control center in Okshobo. You have tens of generating stations, gas, thermal and hydro, all scattered across the nation. The National Control Center is supposed to monitor and see real time what is happening on the grid and also what is happening with each generator. No operator in any of the generating plants or even at the transmission substations can take a decision without the National Control Center getting to know. But what is happening now is that because of this lack of SCADA is just a communication medium where they can see real time what is happening without you telling them, because if they have to rely on me as an operator, I may not tell them what is actually, if my generator goes out for whatever reason, maybe
and that's why we're having this back and forth.
Yes.
Oh, it's me, it's not me, it's
exactly.
you, it's not you.
Exactly.
So you don't
but
know
if you
where
have
to
a SCADA, you'll be able to see without asking anyone that this is what has happened and it has happened in so place. Right? Good. And I mentioned earlier about modernization. While we talk about SCADA, we also should be thinking about having a smart grid, which basically reduces as much as possible the human interface in the management of...
A smart grid that remains centralized, or
yes.
should they be you know, broken up?
We can still run it centralized.
Okay.
But because of the nature of our generation, we can, for now, also consider what we call islanding. Because you observe that the generating stations are more on one part of the country than the other, and that kind of situation. So this is not, in fact, a very serious issue. That the islanding thing is not. That's not the real thing. The management of the grid, the maintenance, the attitude. These are some of the things that has to change if we need a robust grid. Because the bottom line is that whatever that is happening, whatever we say, we have a very weak grid.
Okay, thank you so much.
That is not something of pride to Nigerians.
Thank you, and it's a very good place to leave it. Energy expert, CEO, Mainstream Energy Solutions Engineer, Lamu Audu. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
On Newsnight.
Thank you very much.